My name is Emily St. John Mandel, and I was born in Western Canada, in the province of British Columbia. I went to school in Toronto to study contemporary dance. And then in my early 20s, I began writing, and I began writing the book, Last Night in Montreal, that's just been translated into French. I live with my husband in New York City, and my third novel was just published in the United States, and I'm working on my fourth. I began writing Last Night in Montreal at a somewhat tumultuous period in my life. I had moved from Toronto to New York City to Montreal to New York City in the space of 12 months. And it occurred to me somewhere in there that it would actually be possible to continue living that way forever, that one could move from city to city to city and live that way permanently and perhaps even never settle down. And it gave me the idea for a character who might travel indefinitely. So I began writing about this character, Lilia. And since traveling indefinitely requires a backstory, I began to think one up. I thought, well, perhaps she was someone who'd always traveled. So I had this image in my mind of a car traveling through the desert. And that was the premise of the book, that and the woman traveling. And the image of the car raised some questions, like why would they be traveling? And it was in answering those questions that the plot began to come together. Well, perhaps someone was following them, in which case perhaps there'd been a crime. So Last Night in Montreal is the story of a woman named Lilia Albert, who was abducted as a small child by her non-custodial parent, her father. And he kept her moving, mostly through the continental United States, from state to state to state. And she finds that in adulthood, even with the threat of discovery long since past, it's impossible for her to stop traveling. So it's about a young woman who travels compulsively, and about the man who falls in love with her, Eli, who's a scholar of dead languages, who decides to go after her and find out where she went and make sure that she's okay, and the private detective that's been following Lilia since she was a very small girl. You know, it's interesting, when I think about it, we used to live almost as a matter of course in the same place where our parents lived and our grandparents and our great-grandparents. And we do seem to have become more transient as a species in the 21st century. So yeah, it's possible that in her predicament there's some grain of a larger societal question, I suppose.